Hello, lovelies. Welcome to Auntie's 300 sub Q&A. I want to thank all of you who sent me questions. I got some really good ones, so let's get into it. I'd asked for both audio or write-in questions, and I got some of both. So first, let's hear from Kaity of KaityWorld XYX. Kaity is a fantastic narrator who does it a little different from most others I've seen. She narrates to the camera, and she's very beautiful, so I can understand why. Check out her channel if you haven't already.
Hi, auntiecreeps. These questions are coming from channel KaityWorld XYX. I have 2 questions for you. The first being, what had motivated you initially to start your Creepypasta channel? And the second question is, what is your favorite Creepypasta story of all time?
Good questions, Kaity. Well, to answer the first one, I suppose I was inspired by several things. One of them being listening to other narrators. Once I discovered that there were people telling scary stories on YouTube. I really enjoyed Mr. Creepypasta, Creeps McPasta, King Spook. There goes my phone. Oh, and there was a Mrs. Creepypasta a while back, but I haven't seen her around lately. I thought she was amazing, and I hadn't really heard any female narrators before her. Of course, there's so many wonderful ones now. May have been some then, I don't know. But anyway, but yeah, it took a good couple of years of just listening and being a fan of the art of narration before it hit me that, maybe I could do it too. I used to work for a little radio station reading promos and the weather. So people have always told me that I had a good voice for radio or voiceovers. I mean, I loved the little job I had with the radio station, but it was only part-time, and, I kind of quit in a panic because I thought, I needed to get a full-time job, and I always kind of regretted that. And voice acting is just so hard to break into. But YouTube is for everybody, so I figured it wouldn't cost me much to try, and if all I got was hate comments, I could always just stop. But I've been surprised by how well I've been received by the community. So yeah, I'll keep doing it. Well, okay, that was kind of long-winded for one question. But to answer your second question, that would have been really kind of hard to answer until recently. When I first started this, I read some of my favorite ones just to have a place to start, I guess. But there was No More Sins that I liked a lot, who I first heard Mrs. Creepypasta narrate, about the girl who was tricked into having sex with the devil and gets pregnant. I feel like the story I did with Dr. Moxmo, Mama and Me and the Devil Makes Three, was almost a direct sequel to that story, so I had to do it. There was also Brood Mother, a really gruesome one I first heard King Spook do. I read that one myself, one of my early ones with the horrible audio. But I think my favorite so far was one that I first heard Black-Eyed Blonde do, which was her insanely awesome production. It was so good, I have to call it a production, of Feed the Pig. I'd actually never heard that one before she did it, and I think it's my new favorite. So yeah, I hope that answer was okay, Kaity. And thank you, lovely, for sending those in. The next bit of audio I have is from another fantastic narrator, Ozzette, from Ozzette's Cabinet of Curiosities. She has a beautiful voice, and I haven't heard a lot of her stuff, but I plan to catch up on her videos ASAP. So, Ozzette wants to know.
I've heard the area around the cottage is haunted. Is that due to those who couldn't make it in, or those who couldn't make it back out?
Wow, nice, and a very good question. Well, Ozzette, according to the whispers I've heard in the night at my windows, some of the ghosts in my forest ended up there both ways. Some trying to get in, some trying to get out. Although not all the ghosts in my forest died there, I think some of them are just drawn there because of the others. It is a paranormal hotspot after all. But I can assure you of this. Ever since Auntie took residence in her cottage and agreed to the bargain of telling their stories in exchange for my safety and sanity, anyone who enters this forest with the intention of either hearing a story or helping Auntie tell a story is perfectly safe. I do have their word, and so far everybody's been fine. So don't be afraid to come visit, Ozzette, or anyone else. Thank you, lovely. That was wonderful. The next question I have is from a very talented narrator whose voice gives Auntie the vapors. I won't lie. Let's hear from Paradox Noctis.
Hey, Auntie. So, I have 3 questions for you. 1. What got you into narrating? 2. Do you have a favorite creepypasta or a favorite kind of creepypasta? And 3. Do you have any rooms for rent in that lovely little cottage of yours?
That voice, lovelies. I'm sure you agree that's a channel that needs to be listened to a lot. So, as to your questions, my dear, I guess I already answered the first few in the previous questions. But as for the type of creepypasta I like best, that's a good question. I do like the strange ones, the poetic ones, the end-of-the-world ones, and anything that has to do with the paranormal or demons. I don't really care so much for the let's not meet stories, really. I know they're popular, but, they're usually not that scary or disturbing. I mean, not usually. There's always exceptions. Like, I sort of did one myself with The Evil Orphan. Do You Have Any Kids, it was called. But I really liked that story because it was disturbing. I mean, this poor girl's trying to do her job and the guy keeps messing with her, then starts choking her out for no reason. So, yeah, that was disturbing. As for your last question, well, now, there's a man who's not afraid of no ghosts. Of course, lovely, I have room for anybody brave enough to want to live here. So drop by, and I'll show you around. Thank you for your questions, lovely. Okay, up next is a question from Australia, and another wonderful narrator from there. It's the smooth as silk voice from Stories, Fables, and Ghostly Tales. Let's hear him.
Hi, auntiecreeps. It's Stories from Stories, Fables, Ghostly Tales here. When you first stepped into the world of narration and telling stories, what was your biggest fear? How did you overcome it? And what is some advice for new narrators just starting out? Cheers.
Oh, such excellent questions. I guess my biggest fear was just dying in the water, like being really terrible and getting nothing but hate comments. How did I overcome it? I'm not sure I ever really have, to be honest, although so far I've only had one hateful comment and I totally survived it. But I know what you mean. I did have to overcome it to a certain extent just to actually try. So I guess I overcame it by just putting out that first video and hoping for the best. And I'm glad I did, because I really love doing this. Now, as to your last question, my advice to new narrators just starting out is this. If you really love doing it, if you get a high whenever you put up a new video, then don't ever stop. You will be discouraged at times. I mean, putting yourself out there is hard. Waiting for somebody, anybody to subscribe to you is hard. But don't stop. Keep putting your voice out there till somebody listens. And when they do, and when other people join them, it's so worth it. Thank you, my friend, for your questions. So that's all of the audio questions I got. And everybody who sent their voice in for this, their links will be in the description. I know you heard some awesome voices, and I'm going to make it real easy for you to find them and check out their awesome channels yourselves. Actually, everybody who sent in a question has a YouTube page, so I'm going to leave everybody's links. Okay, now for the written questions, and I'll just swing right into stories, fables, and ghostly tales again, because he also wrote in. Lots of curiosity, I like it. He says, a narrator and an author walks into a bar. You can only sit down and talk to one. Who would you pick and why? Oh, wow, that's pretty tough, dude. I love authors and fellow narrators, so it would be hard to pick. But I guess it would depend on the type of conversation I felt like having that night. If I felt like talking shop, I'd sit next to the narrator. If I felt like having a deep conversation about concepts, ideas, inspirations, I guess I'd sit next to the author. I've done a little writing myself, so I'm sure I'd have a nice night of drinking with either one. I hope that answers your question, okay, lovely, and thank you for sending that in. Okay, my next question is from a very young, just turned 15, up-and-coming narrator who's making a big splash. I've Skyped with her before, and she's one of the sweetest young ladies and talents that I've ever met. She goes by the name of Blindfolded Soul, and she wants to know, how did you find out about Creepypasta? Well, it was several years ago, 2 or 3, I'm not really sure. Time kind of passes weird for me sometimes. Sometimes I'll think something happened 2 or 3 years ago, and turns out it was 10 years ago, but no, it wasn't that long ago. But it was when I first heard of Slender Man. I didn't know if he was the subject of a movie or just what he was, but I found out he was a creepypasta. That was for sure the first time I'd heard the word, and even then I hadn't heard of narrations of them, just the websites that had the stories. Then later I saw people narrating them on YouTube. But yeah, it was definitely Slender Man who brought the world of creepypasta into my life. Thank you, my dear. That was a great question. And last, but definitely not least, is from a young and very talented artist. His handle on YouTube is PitClover After Dark, but we mostly call him Peach, and he calls me Mama Auntie, which is so sweet. And he's also a narrator and a gamer. Sort of an all-around kind of guy. But best of all, he's the artist who drew Auntie's adorable new avatar. So, Peach wants to know, what are your plans in the near future for your narration career? Any milestones or goals? Oh yes, so many. I recently hit a milestone I never even aimed for because I would have thought it was impossible. I'm, of course, talking about my really impromptu collab with Mr. Creepypasta. I mean, I still can't believe that happened. So, anyway, this is a 300 sub celebration, but I'm getting close to 400, so that's my next milestone. But I want to hit as many as I possibly can. Sure. I'm aiming for the sky, my friend. I mean, why not? It's there. I want to take this narration thing as far as I possibly can. Those are the lofty goals, the big ones. But as far as right now, I'm just trying to concentrate on growing my channel with as much good content as I can. Now, as far as goals that are a little more down to earth, there's 2 stories that I wrote a long time ago that I've never really known what to do with, although I've gotten really great feedback from those who have read them. So when I hit one of my milestones, I'm not sure which one, maybe at 500 subs, I think I'm going to release one of them. It's a witch story, a story about a witch I wrote called The Burning of Miranda. It's a big one with a whole cast of characters, so I imagine it'll be a big collab. And I'll probably release the other one, the really long one, further down the road. It'll probably be a series. It's more of an emotional, time-traveling story. So I hope that answers your question, hon, and thank you. Well, lovelies, that wraps up my very first Q&A. I hope you enjoyed it. I know I had lots of fun doing it. Special thanks once again to all of you who participated. It means so much to me. And thank you, the rest of you, for listening. And please keep coming back to visit Auntie, because there's lots and lots more stories to come. I mean, I'm only just starting. I really am. So goodbye for now, lovelies. Auntie will be back with a new story very soon. Until then, sweet dreams.